This is the early days. This is the worst AIs are going to be. They're only getting better. So if you're worried about it today, you should be very worried about it in 2 years' time, because who knows what they're going to look like.
You're listening to the Affiliate Marketing Podcast, powered by Affiverse, ultimate destination for affiliate program news, insights, growth opportunities, partnerships, and affiliate program strategy. In today's episode, we're tackling something that should be keeping every publisher and affiliate marketer awake at night. We're diving into what my guest calls the great affiliate bypass, a seismic shift in how AI engines are consuming, crediting, and completely bypassing the publishers who create the content that powers their answers. Joining me this week is John Osler, the CEO of Finder.com, one of the UK's leading financial services comparison publishers. John recently shared some fascinating research that reveals something quite alarming. AI engines like ChatGPT and Google's AI mode are heavily relying on affiliate-funded publishers for their data. We're talking 60 to 65% of the citations that are being shown, but consumers are bypassing the publishers entirely, going straight to the providers. This isn't just about traffic loss. This is about the fundamental economics of content creation being disrupted and what it means for the future of affiliate marketing as we know it. But I'm really keen to talk to you because you posted a couple of LinkedIn posts that really caught my attention last year. And I thought I really want to dig into some of the things that you're talking about because they're really topical for affiliate program managers that are working with publishers such as yourself to discuss this year. So, John, it's a pleasure to have you here. I think let's get you started by just telling everybody a little bit about who you are and what Finder.com is in case people haven't heard of it. And just tell us how you landed up being the CEO of this company.
Thanks so much for inviting me on. Glad to be here. I guess I've been in digital since 97.
Wow.
So quite a while. I learned HTML working on military intelligence intranets, which was my first job out of university.
Got it.
But quickly pivoted into digital marketing. So I've run search and performance agencies since the last sort of 25 years, or first 15 years, I guess, of that was in the agency world. I had a quite a successful search performance marketing company in New Zealand and Australia. And I sold that in 2007 to the same company that the founders of Finder sold their company to. So we all worked together in this listed company, group of digital companies. And that's sort of how I knew the founders of Finder, who are Australia based, which is where we started. I came back to the UK, launched a few Australian businesses in digital into the UK. And then Fred, one of the founders of Finder, gave me a call from New York, said, I've just set up Finder in the States. How do you fancy about launching Finder into the UK market? Which for financial comparison is probably the maddest market to launch into.
Totally.
Given how mature it is, and there are some really significant players, especially in the utilities and the insurance space. But there was definitely some niches, and we're really into investing and banking, and that sort of was an underserviced part of the market. And so we've really grown up over the last few years into that space.
What a story. Somebody who's actually been in the industry longer than what I have, which is amazing. And I'm definitely going to dig into a lot of your knowledge in terms of what's changed from then to now. But let's start with your post, because that's really why I invited you onto the podcast. And we will share this in the show notes as well for people to read what you said. But you'd analyzed and done some research for best for finance product searches across AI engines and found that almost 62% of the citations reference affiliate sources, yet only 20% reference direct providers. So that's quite big numbers. Like, that really shocked me, actually. So walk us through what you discovered and why you're calling this the great affiliate bypass, which I loved.
Yeah, we do a lot of content. We employ expert editors, and we're real content affiliates that generate a lot of our revenue through performance. So last click attributed affiliate revenue, and we generate a lot of unique content, a lot of reviews and comparisons and analysis. And so we invest a lot of money into the content on the site and our video channels and those sorts of things. And obviously it's been a little bit of a struggle the last couple of years with Google deciding it didn't like affiliates anymore and helpful content updates. And obviously with AI coming along, consumers of AI love it, but rapidly being able to notice the impact, especially when Google started to expand its use of AI overviews, which are now becoming quite dominant. And I'm actually evaluating reporting tools because we wanted to know how well we were citing ourselves. About 3 or 4 different reporting tools I was playing with. And we had a look. We know that the best terms are the most commercial for an affiliate. So best share trading platform, best kits bag, best whatever credit card. Those are the real commercial terms, the bottom of funnel stuff. So I loaded a bunch of those in for our major categories. It was actually for an internal briefing, a lot of banking terms. Really interesting, that gave pretty good results in ChatGPT and AI mode and AI reviews, which are the ones I looked at, being 95% of the market at the moment. And you could see that it answered the question. The question was, what's the best balance transfer credit card? And so it answers the question, the best balance transfer credit card is Barclays card. And in some cases, especially on Google, it links directly to Barclays card and said, get this card or Amex or whichever card it was. And obviously, where did they get that content from? And the thing with AIs and large language models is they're not reasoning on principal data. They're just giving you the most likely answer to that question. And so they're not looking at each individual card and analyzing which one do we think is better. Some humans done that and put it on to their blog or their website. And so if you look through the citations, it was what the AI is doing is just giving you the consensus. It's saying all of the content websites that have compared credit cards, they generally all agree that this one's the best one. And so I'm telling you, this is the best one.
So it's not based on fact. It's based on whatever everybody else thinks.
Exactly, which is why AI gives funny results sometimes. If it's just, oh, that's what everyone says, that must be true. Which is very technical, very interesting with AIs. And if everyone's generating AI content using AIs and start learning of AI content that they generated, and if you're into AIs, it ends in a very bad space. There's lots of people trying to work out how to make that not happen. So there's some intelligence. But you understand why it's doing it. It's giving the best result for the consumer, because the consumer's asked a very pointed question, tell me which is the best card. And so it answers that. It might break it down into categories. The categories it breaks it down are the categories that the content sites have come up with to break down how you categorize these different products. So it's absorbing all of that investment content providers have put into those sites, all our experts, all the time they've spent, and how do we present credit cards are quite complicated, all of that stuff, all the product data we buy in. So we pay for product data, the product data is all licensed, and the AIs, they're just charging ahead. Very competitive space, so they're not waiting for what's right or what's wrong or what's legal or what's not legal, charging ahead. And that's obviously been incredibly disruptive to the content affiliate space across all categories. And so that's where we find ourselves today, with the content sites just really being an invisible upstream provider of information, and then the AIs just giving people and more AIs to help the customer, the consumer focused, and say, well, the consumer wants a link to the bank. So they just put direct links in now to the provider based off the content they've taken from the affiliates. And I think it was telling that I went through all of the sites that were cited and said, is it a provider? Okay, 20% were providers. So they were credit card providers, or they were banks or current account providers. The other ones are classified. So go into each, you just visit each of the sites. Is that an affiliate, a monetized website where it's primarily affiliate revenue that's been generated? And then those ones are classified as affiliate sites. That's how they pay for the site, how they pay the staff. It's all for affiliate last click commissions. And then there were a few other, some government ones, maybe 5% government websites, and maybe 5% really didn't have any discernible model. They had some displays, but not really anything too serious. And a couple were providers that had just some general content they're trying to recommend themselves, sort of thing. But yeah, that's how we ended up with that 62+% for those best terms. And if you use review terms and things like that, again, the AI is not writing the review itself. It's summarizing the consensus of everyone else's reviews, but then providing a direct link to the provider.
This raises two questions for me, which we're going to go a little bit off topic. But the one is, are consumers savvy enough to know that what they're being recommended isn't necessarily the truth right now? Or do they not care because they just want to save time and get 2 or 3 options as the popular consensus? And then how does this impact how we commercially reward our publishers for the content that's being placed into those AI early citations? Because that's something that I was talking about on the back end of last year already with companies like Everflow, who've got really sophisticated tracking. Are we going to see a change in how the performance model, i.e. CPA, CPC, fixed fee media, whatever, are we going to see that change because of this? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, definitely it's having an impact on the revenue model and how we're funding. I spoke to one affiliate who said he was going to switch everything to listing fees next year because it just wasn't economical. There is recognition when there are obviously a lot of providers saying, how do we get cited in, and then how do we come up in the answer as the best for X, whatever the term is they're interested in. So there is a lot of interest in that. And the publishers that are cited, we do content partnerships. and placements and listings and those sorts of things. And those are fixed fee models. And those are definitely going to become more important, both from the publisher's revenue model that works and also from the providers, as far as like while the providers are trying to optimize, they're doing the AEO, they're saying, how do we sharpen the answer? From the quality of the results, I guess it's the same as it was, as far as the providers that are more active with the content providers get more coverage. And you're really relying on the editorial independence of the publishers as far as the quality of the information that's out there. The AIs actually do a very good job of stealing the content, in that they'll give you the categories. So on this topic, we asked it for best trading or best investing. Do you want to do day trading or do you want to do long-term investment? So they'll break it down into those. This is good for this. This is good for this. They're reading all that content. They'll even provide tables of the data that they pulled out of the sites as well. And they put the data in when they find the same number in lots of different places. As consensus is the fee is 5%. So this is the early days. This is the worst AIs are going to be. They're only getting better. So if you're worried about it today, you should be very worried about it in 2 years' time, because who knows what they're going to look like. So I think from the consumer's perspective, they are getting pretty good content as long as it doesn't hallucinate. It doesn't hallucinate as much because it's using sort of RAG, which is retrieval augmented generation. So the AIs, they're kind of working two modes. It's like the core model, which is fact-based, which is what's the capital of England? And that's a fact. It doesn't need to go and search for that. It knows that in the core model. And those aren't updated that often. Then there's AI search, which is what most people are doing when you're searching for like a best thing or the latest thing. And it's running 10, 20 searches behind the scenes. And then it's just incredible how fast it can summarize those with the knowledge that it's got. And it gives you the results. Yeah, I think the consumer's getting a pretty good results. I guess the argument or the concern would be around how is it going to change the publishing landscape, given that it's going to be a lot harder to make money investing in editorial. Again, that's been a story that's going for the last 20 years, is journalistic independence and the amount of money that's available to invest in original research and those sorts of things. If that gets more challenging, then are we going to have the level of investment that we need to get that sort of independent editorial insights and those sorts of things? And I guess that's the flip side of the humanistic side of things, which I think publishers can play to, that have brands and have reputations. And I think one thing is going back to that. If you're a pure play content, organic search, last click affiliate model, you don't really have a brand or don't really have any experts, and it's really just a marketing arbitrage, that model's pretty much dead. That's going to be very hard to maintain that. You really need to have a reason that people would trust you and would seek out your insights and your reviews or comparisons over anyone else's. And even then, you're going to have to be creative and diversified to try and get back to the same levels of revenue we're at.
A couple of things there that people need to be taking note of. If your affiliate program is heavily invested in content publishers, SEO publishers, you need to be looking at your partner segmentation and diversifying out of being heavily invested into those types of partners. You're probably going to have to start making decisions about which partners you're going to go all in with. So that means having some conversations with these publishers, asking them what is their intent to get around what is changing at the moment. What are their business plans? So less of a commercial conversation, more of a partnership conversation. Like, why should I invest my budget with you for the next 2 years? What is your business going to be doing to establish brand, build databases, maintain customer acquisition, and really start to understand what are these partners really doing for you now? Because the SEO play, and I actually wanted to ask you this, Tim, which is off-piste as well, so I do apologize. But as a really experienced content publisher and person that's been in the industry for a very long time, it's very rare that we get people like you on the podcast. So I'm going to milk it for as much as I can. If you were an SEO-based affiliate and didn't have any of these other kind of like partnership models and everything else, what advice would you be giving to these publishers now? Like, what is the first thing they need to be doing? Like plugging in a CMS, building a database, starting a newsletter, distributing their content. What's the golden kind of like scenario that you can give a little bit of advice on?
Yeah, I think we've had these changes over the years. My first change was pre-Google, which was when we were just spamming Alta Vista and Yahoo and all that. It was ridiculous. And then Google came along with PageRank and it just changed the game, and that everything changed in what we were doing. And then the same with Panda. Everyone had huge automatic websites, automatic content generation, and that was going really well. And that all got shut down with Panda, and then buying links was really successful, and then that all got shut down. So there's been big changes, and if you rely too much on one kind of easy win, then scale, you can get shock if you don't have that diversity and tactic as well as revenue. So I think practical steps, the first thing is educate yourself on AI in the marketplace. What's your AI visibility? What's your provider's AI visibility? Who's impacting that? If there have been changes in behavior, you look in Search Console and you go, great, my impressions are going up. Like one click off 500 searches. It's just crazy. How's that all changing? And there's a lot of good content. There's a lot of bad content as well out there. There are AIs do have some vulnerabilities, just like Search did back in the day. And so it can be tempting. I know there'll be obviously some affiliates that's their model. They'll go after those vulnerabilities. But we all know that's fine. It's a short-term game and you can't build a brand around it.
But also like tech solutions, do you think that publishers now are going to move out of just being like really good at bringing content to publishers, but also giving them tools to use that make the search journey, the purchase journey easier?
The second thing I would do is identify where you can demonstrate value and what you're good at, because there's lots of things you can do direct to consumer if you're really good at product development and engineering and you've got connections into the supply chain and those sorts of things. But that's a particularly hard business to get into for a content player. But it's very expensive and very risky. There'll be some out there that actually have done that. I've certainly seen affiliate publishers in the past launch credit cards and those sorts of things. And the things you've got things like ClearScore and those which are like an application-based type affiliate model. So maybe you've got skills in those, you can diversify into those. But maybe there's other areas where you're strong, find that they're strong in video and socials. And so we do a lot of that work as well. We're strong in monetization, so we're with other publishers on that front. So we've over the last couple of years, pre-AI, we were looking at what we're good at, where we can add value, and then who's that valuable to and why would they pay you for it? Maybe you're like Finaway and it's a subscriber base, and you're actually, but you're building up a paying membership for your content. And that's where you've got strength, and you're going to be looking at that more than you would in the past. So there are lots of different models. I think it's really about understanding what you're good at, what value that offers, who does it offer value to, and why would they pay you for it? And I think that's individual to each business.
It's like really good questions to take your business back to the drawing board and actually figure out where do you fit into the funnel. Because being just a content provider or a reviewer or a comparison is probably not going to be enough now because AI has taken that bit over. I did want to talk about that though and see what your thoughts are, because if the new world is AI basically scraping intelligent content that's been written by humans and summarizing it and putting it forward to consumers, in the old traditional media world, that would have been known as plagiarism. In the AI world, it seems to be standard operating procedure. So have you had any conversations with OpenAI, Google, or other AI companies about this? And what's your position on it?
Google used to borrow a desk from me back in the day when they came to New Zealand. So the things have changed since then. But yeah, I've always been a little bit skeptical about that. There's stuff going on. I think the Independent Publisher Alliance, are trying to do some lobbying, and there's some other initiatives that they're trying to do some on the lobbying side. There's certainly some publishers suing AIs, especially AIs that are maybe smaller and make some mistakes. There's a Canadian one being sued by around 5 or 6 big publishers for taking their journalistic contents without permission. And I think that there's infrastructure plays as well. I think it's Cloudflare that's been working on their model, and they've been lobbying for Google to be more transparent, separating out their AI bot from the indexing bot. I'm not sure if that makes a lot of sense now that Google's going to turn AI anyway. There are those cases. I think it's quite funny that Google's suing about 4 scrapers at the moment.
I think it's going to be a little bit like the Wild West. Like, I think people are going to have small pockets of opportunities to make hay while the sun shines. But I think very quickly, regulators are going to come in and actually start to look at this and go, what is reasonable? What can be done? And I know in Europe, in Germany specifically, I think they are already looking at all of this and understanding how does AI legally get accessed, used, and what happens with all of this data that's being scraped and put forward. And it's similar to how the FTC works in the US in terms of the Consumer Act. I'm wondering whether our regulators here in UK and Europe are going to hop on the bandwagon and do the same. So I think time will tell, really.
I think people will try. I think we'll end up in the situation that if you don't want to play, that's fine. Like, you can no index your whole website and not be in Google. If you don't want Google to take your content, you're just not in Google. And if you're on the web, you're not going to be in ChatGPT. You could block ChatGPT now, but is that a sensible part of a digital business model in the future? So I'm always sort of forward-looking, and the sands have shifted. there'll be winners and there'll be losers. I think that's one inevitable. You just want to make sure you're on the winning side and not on the losing side when things change like this. So I think it's, affiliates and publishers that can be the most responsive and dynamic and creative that are going to be on the winning side. But those that have relied heavily on one particular model are going to find it very, very difficult. And they've already found it difficult in the last couple of years. So it's just getting harder and harder, and it's not going to get any easier for those models. I do think, going back to affiliate's pretty simple. It's someone that introduces new customers to a provider and gets a commission. Now, you don't have to do that through this particular traffic model. You can do that through building a CRM and building an audience. You can do it through social. Obviously, we've seen influencer over the last sort of 5 years sort of take off as a channel. And a lot of that's moving fixed fee because they've had tracking issues and leakage in the past. And that's the same sort of problem that people have been trying to solve for. But ultimately, they're getting evaluated on, are they influencing customer acquisition? And the more they influence customer acquisition, the more they should get paid. And it's just going to be a little bit more complicated than last click. I think Advertise, they bought something for the rebranded Advantage Point, and there's a clickstream model.
Very clever play, because I think we're also all worried about attribution and zero click. And I think that's going to impact whatever happens as it rolls forward. That's going to impact commercial modeling within the performance. So we're poised to maybe update, because we haven't updated for the last 20 years. And I think we're now finally at the point where we have to adapt and survive. And it's going to be interesting to see how that actually pans out. And everybody I'm talking to knows it's going to happen, but doesn't know how yet. And I think we just have to stay on the bleeding edge, looking at what's coming, and calm down a little bit. Because the other thing that I'm seeing when I'm looking at some of the data that I'm reading, everybody's worried about AEO and getting citations in there, which is fabulous. But don't forget where your clicks are coming from, which is still Google search. So depending on what kind of program you're looking at, and obviously you deal in finance, which is a more mature audience. So that audience isn't necessarily AI friendly yet. Like if you think I'm your target audience, I still go to Google. Yeah, I'll look at what AI tells me, but I don't necessarily trust it because I don't want something to tell me what I should be thinking. I want to go do the research myself still. And so depending on what kind of program you have, what age of the audience that you're targeting, you don't necessarily have to be changing anything now just because it's the new fashionable thing to do. Where are your clicks still coming from? And that is where you should be focusing, which is why your partner segmentation doesn't necessarily have to change just yet. So go in deep and go and support those partners that are bringing you the clicks, whether it's SEO, AI, social influence, email marketing, paid media, whatever those partners are doing. Think about where are the clicks coming from, because that's actually ultimately all that matters in this channel. All this great stuff that we're talking about is coming, and it's stuff that we need to be aware of, but it doesn't necessarily mean you have to pull the trigger to change right now. It's just about looking at what's happening and keeping abreast. Do you think that's a fair assumption that I'm making?
I think it's probably changed more than we've described. It's really complicated because when you're looking at your analytics and where stuff's coming from, you'll see more branded search coming. You'll see more direct traffic coming. Now, that is the byproduct of people using AI for research and then going back to Google to type in, because I think 25% of Google is just navigation. People just use it as the address bar, to navigate to a destination. Now, why are they typing in your brand name into Google and navigating through to you? Because they read something about you probably in some AI chats they've had. And the same with direct traffic as well, where they just type the domain in because there's no link in the AI result. Depending on the AI you use, it's still a bit, even in Google, it's pretty sporadic as far as what's linked and what's not linked. But I think we'll start to see more and more linked. And certainly ChatGPT is doing more integrations now as well, which is going to be crazy as far as what's going to happen there, where they're integrating Shopify into into the results and those sorts of things. It's going to be super interesting. We're certainly seeing a lot of our videos turn up inside AI overviews and those sorts of things now. So that's also kind of crazy and weird. And the video is a bit of a zero click for us as well. We get a lot of video views, a lot of our reviews, but normally it influences the decision, but you don't get the last click attribution. There's been a problem's been around for a while, but just accelerating, I guess. This year we will see Google, even with the AI overviews, the percentage of search which have AI overviews has taken a step jump every 6 months. And I think we'll see that even more this year as well. And they're sort of funneling people to AI mode until it's all AI mode because you're just getting funneled that way. One thing that we know that Google's is not going to reduce their ad revenue, and it has been the last 5 years, has been putting up the cost and manipulating the auction model. So they're certainly in this because they were forced into it by ChatGPT, but they're certainly going to maintain that ad revenue. And so that's still going to be interesting in how that evolves. ChatGPT had some really interesting ideas about paid and how they were going to do it, a lot of which didn't even seem to be legal, but that doesn't seem to stop them. But I think they put that on pause because Gemini 3 came out and it was a lot better.
The thing is that I think what we're seeing here in AI, and only like oldies like me who've been around, and I'm not disparaging by age, but people that have been through the cycle of digital change. I remember when we had Bing and Yahoo and Ask Jeeves, and there were multiple search engines, and then all of a sudden there was just Google. And we're going to see the same with OpenAI, Perplexity. All of these are going to come to the fore. They're going to establish themselves, and then there's going to be like platforms of choice, and then it's going to whittle down, and then there's going to be innovation. It's just similar to how we saw with social media. There was Facebook, then there was X, then there was TikTok, then there was Instagram, then they merged together, and then there's Snapchat. And it's just an evolution of yet another way to liaise with and engage with online content. And I think it's exciting. I'm quite excited to see what happens here now. It's like a revival because we had been stagnant for a while, doing the same old strategies, the same old things. And I think this is the next evolution of learning again. So not to be afraid of and not to be scared of embracing, but also not to jump right in without having a clear strategy in place.
For a lot of content businesses, they're reevaluating the business model. Yeah, and I think going back to those fundamentals is not a bad thing to do. And you know, those that get through will come out stronger than they were. Maybe they were too reliant on a one-trick pony, and now they've got a more sophisticated business, or they've got a clearer direction where they can add value. Yeah, and that's one thing that Google tried to address badly, as it turned out, a couple of years ago, in that there were probably too many shallow content affiliates, you know, kind of flooding Google with content. And they tried to do something about it. It was a disaster, but AI seems to have solved that problem, just upset the ecosystem in that people do actually have to get paid for the work they do. And how does that happen? You know, I'm excited about the changes as well. It's super interesting. If you like solving problems and you like building businesses, then it's a good place to be. There are some smart providers out there that are on board. They understand they've got the same challenges. They don't really mind where it comes from. They just need more customers. So they're trying to understand the new world and how it all works and who's influencing it and who's influencing, you know, decisions. So I think if you can put yourself into that sort of supply chain and influence consumers and connect with people, then I think you're going to be able to find a way of monetizing that and getting paid.
All right, let's look to the future. So 2026, what is your prediction? And I want you to do it twofold, for publishers and then also for advertisers working with publishers. So the affiliate manager's view, what's your prediction? And then also the publisher view, your prediction.
Yeah, so I guess for the affiliate managers with their programs, I have talked to a few that have realized that they've been too narrow. They've been a little bit lazy, and they've worked with a couple of big affiliates. And now they've come to me and they're going, oh, actually, why are these guys doing so well? And I'm like, they had a much broader affiliate program than you guys. And they accidentally benefited because when you're trying to get consensus, it's about being in more places, more formats, more providers, obviously trusted publishers, multi-format, in different circumstances, different contexts, different voices talking about you. And that's, I know a few brands that have done really well, not because there was any strategy, just they were going broad, and that's been the product. I've known others that have been often in finances because of compliance. It's too hard to get new publishers signed off. There's a lot of restrictions on financial promotions. And they end up with very narrow programs. And those have really hurt them within the AI world because they're just not in many places that they could be in. So I think your program's going to be a bit broader. You're going to need a better mix of provide different, going back to blogs and people that maybe you kind of walked away from, but then social and video, Reddit strategies. So all of this sort of working together. Yeah, and it's a more comprehensive, more kind of multimedia sort of strategy for your affiliate partnerships and influencer partnerships, and it's all connected. And they'll be looking, obviously, the SEO teams. And this is about siloed as well, I think. Yeah, no more silo. You can't have a team for this, team for this, team for this, because it's your brand, and your brand is going to overlap with your SEO, which is going to overlap with your AEO, which is going to overlap with your affiliates. And yeah, so that we often talk about that, but I think the way AI is impacting consumer behavior is going to be integrated across all those channels because they all do work together. So I think that's going to be driven by consumer change. Obviously, you'll be looking at your AI ads, there'll be a lot more options coming out of the next 2 years as far as how those work. We definitely see higher conversion rates from when you do get clicks from AIs. They are much higher converting traffic as well. So that's interesting for your return on investment models. And I think, as I said, it's the early stages. This is the worst AI is going to be. What happens when we get more agentic experiences where the AI is doing more things for you? It's more integrated into ecosystems. It can book flights for you and it can book hotels and all those sort of things without you even looking at the screens. You're not even seeing these AI overviews. It's just doing it all for you. Yeah, it's really good. So yeah, for publishers, I think there's going to be a necessity, especially if you're very heavily content, heavily organic, heavy last click. There is going to be quite a few challenges to overcome as far as your business model. It should be an opportunity to get into new areas and investing in new opportunities. But yeah, I certainly think from the publisher's perspective, there's going to be, just things like understanding your impact on AI citations and how the answer and what's being surfaced in the answers, understanding how you fit into that new ecosystem, how you do get paid, what programs are willing to pay maybe for the clickstream. We've had a little bit of the probabilistic commissions because of the lack of tracking in mobile and those sorts of things. So those programs and advertisers that support those sort of attribution techniques have sort of benefited their campaigns. And I think programs that can they're going to pay out on that basis, I think, are also useful as well. But probably also looking more towards fixed fee and that as well, and really educating your providers on where you bring influence. If you're an influencer, then you obviously bring some influence there. If you're heavy content, you've got unique content, you do research, you've got stats, you've got unique perspectives, you've got authority and trusted experts. That's going to be influencing how providers show up. And so having those conversations is going to be really interesting. And working across teams, that's always been a bit of a challenge for us. You're talking to the affiliate manager, how do you talk to more people in the company where you can probably demonstrate and add some value? So I think that will be a challenge for publishers as well, to build new relationships across those companies.
I think this has just been an eye-opening conversation, to be honest. And I'm going to round us off with the fact that the Great Bypass isn't just a catchy phrase. It's a genuine inflection point for our industry that we're facing. And I want to thank you for coming on to the podcast and sharing some of the insights that you are sharing that people can learn from, because we are literally on the bleeding edge here, living it as we see it every day. But it's not something to be frightened of. Those of us that are more experienced have been through inflection points like this before in the industry, and it's only ever delivered more value, more volume, better outcomes. So yeah, thank you very much for being here on the podcast with me and sharing all of this insights and giving us a sneak peek at what you think the future looks like, because I think that's how we're all going to learn, is from everybody's perspective as it's unfolding.
Well, thanks for having me. It's been fun. And we live in interesting times. You're not going to be bored. I can guarantee no one's going to be bored in the affiliate space this year.
No, definitely not. And I'm thankful for that. So thanks for being on the podcast, and I'm looking forward to seeing you soon.
600,000 downloads and counting. Thank you for helping the Affiliate Marketing Podcast rank in the top 2% of shows worldwide. We couldn't do it without you. If you love the insights, show your support. Head to Apple Podcasts, hit subscribe, and drop us a 5-star rating. If you want to be a guest, submit your pitch via our contributor form on affyversemedia.com. Thanks for being part of the Affyverse community. Your growth journey starts here.